huge upgrades as Mercedes will be bringing a B-spec car. Ferrari is confident they are on the right path, and James Vowles is one of the best team bosses right now. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get into the latest F1 news. Formula One can be a turbulent ride at times, but for Williams boss James Vowles, the 2024 season has been extreme. From starting the year with an overweight challenger, having no spare car early on, winning the race for Carlos Sainz's services, dropping Logan Sargeant and then becoming a hero in Argentina because of Franco Colapinto's brilliant form, it has been hard to keep up with it all. Bouncing between these highs and lows may have left even Vowles struggling to catch his breath, but he is equally not a person who lets emotional swings get to him. He well knows that he has been employed by Williams to help get the team back towards the front of the grid. And while the Grove-based outfit has had some good days in the sun so far this year, he accepts there is still an awful long way to go before he can feel he is anywhere near accomplishing his mission. When I'm asked the question, "Are you happy with the first half of the season?" you go, "Clearly not," Vowles told Autosport. "We had so much potential and performance in the car that we didn't utilize, and that's frustrating. But my head is that everything is just stepping stones towards the long-term goal. That's how I see things. Carlos is a fantastic addition, but he is just one of 1,000 things that we need to do on our path towards going back towards the front. It's the same as adding performance to the car and tangibly demonstrating to ourselves, not the world, that we are able to develop a car successfully against what is a very fierce field now. So because I have that grounding of 26, 27 and just trying to get some fundamentals in place. You detach yourself from anything that you're doing at that stage. It sounds odd, but it gives you the grounding you need, not to get carried away with the highs and lows of it all, because there's plenty. Dropping Sargeant was tough. Perhaps the most difficult moment for Vowles came after the Dutch Grand Prix when he had to make the call to drop Sargeant, with the American having not made the progress that had been hoped for against Alex Albon. A hefty crash with a newly updated car on Saturday morning in Zandvoort proved to be the final straw. While some individuals in the F1 paddock may revel in the opportunity of getting rid of people, Vowles admits it was not easy for him. "I knew what came with the job when I chose to do it, but if you look up and down the grid, there's very few team principals that ever change their driver halfway through the year," he said. "It is tough to do, but what I'm driven by is openness and honesty. Logan knew long before that point that he was at risk, and he knew what his targets were. I preferred to lay it down in a really raw way. Here's where you're not performing at a level we need to, and that's in your hands. I'll help you as much as possible. But if we don't get there, this is where we will make changes." So as a result of that, I'm comfortable with myself that I gave every opportunity that I could with Logan and supported him in that opportunity at the same time. But my responsibility isn't to one individual in this team, it's to 1,000 people that are here every weekend, day in and day out. While dropping a driver is never nice, Vowles would probably admit that he could never have imagined Sargeant's replacement Colapinto doing so well. The Argentinian seemed instantly at home in F1 machinery, and after just missing out on the points in Italy, his 8th place in Baku drew massive praise from up and down the pit lane. Vowles sees parallels to what has happened to Colapinto to his own journey through F1. "I was a graduate 30 years ago," said Vowles. "Someone trusted me and gave me opportunity all the way through my career, and I'm here today." Franco was someone I've known even before he joined Williams. He had no practice, jumped in the car, and did what he could with it. "He's bloody quick, deserved a chance, and I could see something that the rest of the world couldn't see. He's delivered on that, and it is a feel-good factor. It really is." Vowles also thinks that the story of giving a youngster like Colapinto a chance is one that stands true for bringing the next generation of talent through at Williams. "At my core and Williams' core, and that is why we align so well, is investing in future generations," added Vowles. Franco epitomizes that fundamentally. "We're doing the same within the factory with brilliant graduates that we're pushing through the organization and giving opportunity to. It's rewarding because that's really at the core of what I want. I want future generations to not push me out of my role, but challenge me to the level where I have to let go of the reins of something I have a responsibility for." That's Schumacher remark. It is not just on track where Vowles has been in the spotlight though, because he has learned some tough lessons off it too. Perhaps one of the biggest came at the Italian Grand Prix, when Vowles found himself at the center of a media frenzy after he made a remark about Mick Schumacher that grabbed the headlines. Speaking about the decision to bring in rookie Colapinto rather than more experienced options like Schumacher, Vowles said, "I think we have to be straightforward about this. Mick isn't special, he would just be good. The fallout of his not special remark was quite extreme, and Vowles quickly realized his phrasing had not been great, which is why he apologized to Schumacher and his family. Looking back at events now, Vowles admits it taught him a good lesson in being more careful in what he says. It's difficult because that one for me, that's clearly not what I meant, which is why I went and immediately apologized to him, his family and everyone around it, he said. I was devastated at the time because it showed me the power of a few words and that I have to be far more diligent in what I'm doing and how I'm saying it. It was a learning lesson that I hope stays with me forever. Red Bull has opened up about how the financial realities of Formula One have played a significant role in their loss of key staff members this year, including notable figures such as Jonathan Wheatley and Will Courtney. A team, which is based in Milton Keynes, is currently undergoing a substantial reorganization. During this time, several senior members have chosen to accept job offers from other organizations and will soon be moving on to new positions. Among those leaving is Adrian Newey, who has served as the Chief Technical Officer and is heading to Aston Martin. Jonathan Wheatley, the sporting director, is set to become the team principal at Sauber Audi, and Will Courtney, who has been in charge of strategy, is advancing his career by joining McLaren as their sporting director. The departures of these three high-profile individuals have attracted media attention, occurring after a season where the team has encountered various challenges both on the racetrack and in the background. While some observers see these departures as a sign that Red Bull may be struggling, the reality is that such moves are fairly common in the competitive world of Formula One. It is not unusual for rival teams to offer lucrative contracts to attract experienced staff away from other teams. However, Red Bull has pointed out that their ability to make counter-offers has been severely limited. This is largely due to the implementation of cost cap regulations in Formula One, which restrict how much each team can spend. The rules take into account all wages for key operational staff at a team, with the exception of the top three earners. The identities of these top three are not publicly disclosed, but it is widely believed that neither Wheatley nor Courtney was among them at Red Bull. In discussing the difficulties of retaining top talent in the current environment of Formula One, Christian Horner, the team principal at Red Bull, remarked that the financial constraints mean that teams cannot afford to bring on extensive resources, saying that it's essential to evaluate the return on investment and that it forces teams to make some hard choices. Horner explained that Jonathan Wheatley was an outstanding sporting director, but he also represented a significant expense. Therefore, decisions had to be weighed carefully. When Wheatley received the opportunity to move to Audi, Horner advised him to pursue that path, noting the limitations that the team's current regulations presented. He encouraged Wheatley to seek opportunities for advancement and to take the chance to earn a significantly higher salary. Horner recognizes and understands the motivations behind the movements of senior team members, especially when they can take positions that might not be available at Red Bull, along with increased financial benefits. However, not all the news surrounding these departures is negative, as they create opportunities for others within the organization to rise into more prominent roles. This upward movement can foster career advancement, helping individuals develop their skills and preventing feelings of stagnation that might lead them to seek job opportunities elsewhere. Jonathan Wheatley had been part of Red Bull for a significant period, and Horner noted that his path to becoming a team principal was blocked within the current structure. Instead, Wheatley found himself entrenched in a role that had become increasingly narrow, focused mainly on race days. With his departure, other individuals are now given the chance to step into those roles, representing necessary growth and adaptation. Similarly, Will Courtney, who had dedicated 2 decades to Red Bull, also faced similar crossroads. Discussions about other potential roles within the organization did not come to fruition, and when he was presented with a better paying position at McLaren, Horner felt it was appropriate to encourage him to take the opportunity. This progression has opened avenues for others within the team, including Hannah Schmitz, who now has the chance to take on more responsibilities. If she hadn't been afforded this opportunity, she would have been an attractive target for rival teams looking to enhance their own ranks. Horner emphasized that every organization experiences change over time. Red Bull has managed to maintain a low turnover rate of less than 5%, highlighting the loyalty within the team. And while the spotlight often shines brighter on senior staff departures, Horner reassured that this turnover is a natural part of the evolving landscape of Formula One, where teams are continuously changing and developing. Reflecting on his tenure since joining Red Bull in 2005, Horner noted the significant transformations that have occurred within the team. When he looks around the engineering department today, particularly compared to the time when they enjoyed success with drivers like Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber from 2010 to 2013, he sees that only a small number of people from that period are still in those roles. Among the few remaining are Paul Monaghan, who continues with the team, and Michael Manning, who is known for his work on race starts. Otherwise, much of the team, including race and control engineers, has evolved over the years, which is essential for any organization's progress. One of the most notable departures from Red Bull is Adrian Newey, who is set to start a well-compensated role with Aston Martin next March. Although Newey has been a key figure in Red Bull's past accomplishments, Horner believes their partnership was reaching a natural conclusion. When asked if the early season challenges at Red Bull contributed to this change, Horner replied that it was too simplistic to connect the various events. He indicated that there was a combination of factors at play that were not directly related. Newey's decision to leave was one that had been building through the latter part of 2023. Horner mentioned that Newey had been grappling with his feelings, having previously agreed to step away from active involvement in Formula One by the end of 2025 to focus on a mentoring role. This was a strategy put in place to prevent losing other technical team members to rival teams. However, it seemed that Newey felt his journey in Formula One was not yet complete, and the decisions he made were based on his own motivations, which Horner acknowledged were entirely valid. Newey's contract with Aston Martin includes significant benefits and compensation that simply was not available at Red Bull. Horner expressed understanding for Newey's desire to continue competing in Formula One at a high level. As someone vested in a team not only as a partner but also as a shareholder, Horner stated he does not blame Newey for seeking new challenges. In this new world where costs are capped, the landscape of Formula One differs considerably from what it was just 5 years ago. Now, much of the team's focus is directed toward maximizing the use of a budget that is limited to $140 million. Each dollar must be spent wisely, and over time, larger teams have occasionally allowed themselves to carry excess expenses. The cost cap pushes teams to become increasingly efficient and innovative in their operations. As the final phase of the season approaches, Mercedes are preparing important upgrades. The W15's last improvements of the year will arrive in the coming weeks. Aside from these updates being pivotal for the next sequence of rounds, they will be foundational for Mercedes' 2025 package. Considering how Mercedes began this year's campaign, they are now in a relatively strong position. The Silver Arrows have claimed 3 victories and several podiums this season, thanks to an impressive mid-season development plan. Mercedes were as fast as anyone in the build-up to the summer break, even as McLaren began to ramp up their own updates on the MCL38. Updates have been lacking in recent weeks, and those that did arrive to the W15 failed to unlock the desired performance. Because of this, Technical Director James Allison describes the next phase of the year as crucial. We've got a fairly substantial set of new clothes updates for the car coming for Austin that we hope will give us a decent weekend there. So we've got to deliver all that and get ourselves ready for these last few races of the year. Owing to the substantial gap since the last race weekend in Singapore, most teams are expected to introduce substantial upgrades. For Mercedes, their next package will determine to what extent they can trust their development direction for 2025. After all, next season's cars will be an evolution from this season. Considering that most teams are expected to focus completely on the 2026 regulations from January 1st next year, the next few months are critical for Mercedes' medium-term prospects. However, the last few weeks have seen Mercedes lose ground. As McLaren and Ferrari have taken steps forward, the Brackley squad can be said to have stood still. Upgrades to the W15 went a long way in eliminating the car's unpredictable characteristics at the beginning of the season. Extraneous variables like wind conditions and track temperatures, though still something of a nuisance, have become far less impactful. Having made some adjustments to their Mini DRS rear wing design, McLaren is now drawing attention to the fact that other teams in Formula One should address their own problems instead of focusing on McLaren's changes. They are also calling for more recognition and respect for the FIA, which oversees the regulations within the sport. The long-standing controversy surrounding flexible wings in Formula One was reignited after the recent Azerbaijan Grand Prix. During this race, onboard footage captured the winning car of Oscar Piastri, who drives for McLaren, showing that the upper and lower elements of the rear wing were separating slightly while speeding down the straight. This adjustment effectively reduced aerodynamic drag and enhanced the car's speed in a straight line. In response to complaints from rival teams and discussions with the FIA, McLaren decided to take the initiative and make changes to their rear wing design. When McLaren's team principal Andrea Stella was approached by the media at the Singapore Grand Prix, he was asked why the team felt it necessary to modify their rear wing. In his response, Stella explained that McLaren had conducted their own thorough analysis and shared findings with the FIA regarding certain rival teams that they believe require scrutiny and corrective measures. Stella noted, "We want to proactively have conversations with the FIA because it seems that this situation is escalating, highlighting the importance of open communication." He added, "For us, making changes is pretty much transparent, so it makes sense for us to proceed. We do not expect major repercussions in terms of our performance." He further explained that this situation presented an opportunity for McLaren to remind the FIA that they have also been diligent in monitoring their competitors. "We do not want to invest our energy and time dealing with the media or trying to create sensational stories. Instead, we simply communicate our observations to the FIA." Stella expressed confidence that the FIA would engage with other teams to ensure they address their own underlying issues, which may not be immediately obvious but are still significant. He emphasized that many of these problems likely exist and need attention. Elaborating on how McLaren views the FIA's role, Stella insisted that all parties involved should show a little bit more respect toward the governing body and highlighted the expertise of their technical team. When asked for specifics about the issues he wanted the FIA to investigate concerning other teams, Stella was cautious. "I will not be precise because I would be revealing information that falls within confidential boundaries." He continued, "For some reason, the discrepancies in slot gaps have become a major talking point in Formula One. There are numerous ways that different cars are taking advantage of aerodynamic forces on their surfaces, from what we have analyzed. Some teams are being far more effective in this regard." Despite this, Stella expressed his trust in the FIA's ability to manage these matters. "The individuals at the FIA are highly skilled from a technical standpoint. When we engage with them, we notice that they not only comprehend the mechanisms involved, but also have a solid understanding of what is happening with our competitors." He conveyed confidence in the FIA's capabilities to determine whether the tests applied are adequate to limit certain aerodynamic practices. "So, I truly believe we are in good hands regarding regulations with the FIA. We should all, including teams, reporters, and everyone involved in the sport, show a little more respect for the FIA and their technical teams because they do incredibly important work. Their job is far from easy, and at times we should acknowledge their efforts. Unfortunately, I do not see enough recognition being given to them." As a result of these developments, McLaren has surged to the top of the Formula One Constructors' Championship standings for 2024, holding a substantial lead of 41 points over Red Bull with just 6 races left in the season. Ferrari chief Fred Vasseur reckons the fact Lewis Hamilton is joining from Mercedes confirms that his Formula One team is heading in the right direction. Despite having a deal in place for next season, Hamilton broke his contract with the Silver Arrows to force through a move to Ferrari for 2025. The switch rocked F1 as well as Mercedes, but Vasseur, who worked with Hamilton previously in GP2 and the Formula 3 Euro Series, says he knew the 7-time world champion always had ambitions to join F1's most famous team. He said, "Yes, it was not that difficult to convince Lewis. I remember that in 2004 we were together in the F3 Euro Series. He at the time was tied to McLaren Mercedes, but he already had in mind that sooner or later he would go to Ferrari." Speaking at the Festival dello Sport organized in Trento by the Gazzetta dello Sport, the Scuderia team principal added, "We talked about it some time ago. He always had this desire in mind, but of course, he is a driver who wants to have guarantees in terms of performance. For him, this aspect is always in the first place. If he chose to join Ferrari, it confirms to me that we can have the right car. This is the ultimate goal. A driver like Lewis does not come to us on vacation, and from my side, I think we are in the right place in terms of performance. We need a step forward, and I can say that we are devoting a lot of resources to our next project." Hamilton will join up with Charles Leclerc, who himself raced for Vasseur in the junior categories before making the step up to F1. Leclerc says that he is unfazed by Hamilton's arrival and will welcome the challenge of him being on the other side of the garage, replacing Carlos Sainz. Leclerc said, "I don't think there is jealousy. Fred is not my girlfriend. We love each other, we value each other, but there is no jealousy." I was always aware of the negotiations between Lewis and Ferrari. I knew there was this possibility. Everything was very transparent, and I was the first to say that for me to have a teammate of this depth would be motivating. When you have a 7-time world champion driving your own car, it's a super interesting challenge. Then I have a very good relationship with Lewis, and I'm sure that will be the case in the future. Having said that, I really want to say that we also had a great partnership with Carlos. We work very well, and our relationship has always been great. In a few months, we will turn the page, and I admit I am looking forward to the new challenge with Lewis. Every teammate always has very strong points and weaker ones, so you can always learn. I see this as a great opportunity. That's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.